got sort of a rambly-ish video for you today, so if you're not in the mood for that, do not watch this. It's not going to be concise, it's not going to be eloquent, it's just going to be me like chatting at the camera. So, I went to the library today and got out a total of 9 books, and I'm going to just talk about some of them and do sort of a library book haul, and then the second part of the video I'm going to be talking about diaries and sort of what drives someone to write a diary and how you can be inspired to write a diary, and also books that are in diary format. Kids books, obviously. But so let's just get started with it. The first book that I picked up was this Canadian graphic novel. I knew nothing about it. I still know nothing about it. It's called That One Spooky Night. It's written by Dan Barrell. And I have no idea what it's about. Like, I haven't even read the back. I just saw these little tags, graphic novel and Canadian. See those? Those little tags. And picked it up because I have had an amazing track record with Canadian and authors recently. I'm really loving Kit Pearson. I really love Kevin Sylvester. I'm really loving all the Dear Canada series. So I'm just really on a roll with Canadian authors. Don't know what it is about Canadians, but we're just so awesome. So, I've also really liked graphic novels. I read The Lunch Witch, which I really liked, The Jellaby, which happens to be another Canadian-based author too. So, it was interesting that sort of combination would strike me again. So, we'll see if this is any good. I don't know, but, you know, you gotta try new things sometimes. Next up is Little Fur. So this is a book about a girl who is half troll, half elf. And she just sort of wanders around the forest and sees people and creatures and stuff and lives her life. So that will be another interesting read. I believe I've read it, actually, but I don't remember any of the details. I don't remember anything, actually, about it. So, it's a really nice binding, actually. It's sort of a velvety cover. So it feels almost like fabric, which lends itself really nicely to the vibe of the story, right? Little Fur, right? It's like a furry cover. Seems fitting, at least. Next up is a book called Ali Finkel's Rules for Girls. I listened to the audiobook version of this about a million years ago and loved it, obviously. Ali Finkel is just this kid, so it's kind of like a diary in a sense, but not exactly. But so it's split into rules. She has rules for everything. So her rule number 1 is like chapter 1. And it's like, don't stick a spatula down your don't stick a spatula down your best friend's throat. So she writes all these rules, and it's sort of her guide to being a girl, right? It's like an instruction manual, right? She wants sort of a formula to live your life, and that's really interesting. So I'm excited to read this again, and I'm also excited to see what kind of underlying messages accompany this story, because there's a lot about it that could be maybe a bit detrimental if I'm thinking about it just sort of off the top of my head, right? Because there's no formula to life. Really, what is a rule? There's no such thing as rules. Rules are just self-constructed like criticisms and things that you make up, right? There's no such thing as rules. That's my personal belief, anyway. So, the fact that she's making rules just lends itself to the way kids would think and interpret rules. So that could be interesting. I'm interested to see how the story ends on that note. So, moving right along. This video is already getting long. It's going to be like 20 minutes. Oops. What can you do, you know? Sometimes videos just are like that. This is a book that I already took out of the library once, but I did not get to reading before. It's called The Jumbies, and it's a horror book. And you know, I haven't read any children's horror books before, I don't think. Unless you count The Graveyard Book as being a horror book, but that's not at all horror. Anyway, this one looks real creepy. So, I'm just excited to read something different, you know? I think it's Canadian too. I feel like it is. I mean, Algonquin. That sounds Canadian to me. I'm trying to find the... Canada. So there you go. I'm obsessed with Canadian authors, apparently. Next up, I've got Seraphina and the Black Cloak, another book which I've tried numerous times to read, and it just hasn't come into fruition yet. So I tried to listen to the audiobook. I got about one part through, which is about an hour of reading, or an hour of reading aloud, I should say. So I probably got maybe chapter 3? No, chapter 4 maybe, or 5. So it's just about this girl who somehow is hiding away with her father in his workplace. So he works at a manor. I'm not sure where this is set, actually, or when is this set. They don't have a handy little guide, but sorry, I haven't even looked at these books before I talked about them, so I'm a little bit disorganized. Hope you guys don't mind. Anyway, she basically lives in a sort of creepy basement dungeon type thing, and she catches rats for fun and just wanders around and gets up to mischief and stuff. And then kids start to go missing, and that's as far as I got in the book. So, you know, it really just struck me as being really interesting, and I really like the name Seraphina, and the cover is beautiful. See that? So I just really was attracted to it. I don't really know why. It just seems like pretty much a regular old book, but I get a good vibe from it, so I will try that one. And then I'm actually really interested for the outcome of this book, because I read the first 2 in the series. I'm going to show you what it is. It's called The Land of Stories, A Grim Warning. It's number 3 in the series, but it's written by Chris Colfer, who, as you probably will know, he was an actor on Glee, like the television show. He played Kurt Hummel, I think his name was. Kurt Hummel. I wanted to say Kurt Vonnegut, but I'm like, that is so wrong. He did not play Kurt Vonnegut. That would be a very interesting Glee episode. I'll tell you that right now. Anyway, and I loved the first book. The Wishing Spell, I think I gave it a 5 or a 4 out of 5 stars, and just really liked it. It was about these kids, these 2 twins, Alex and somebody else. I don't remember the boy's name. And they went and they read this fairy tale book that their grandmother had, and they got sucked into the story, and so they were in this fairy tale world, and this whole thing was going on, sort of Ink-Heartish, but for maybe younger audiences. It was more accessible and less sort of deep, raw emotion associated with it. It was more of a fun, uplifting story. Anyway, I really liked that. It was an adventure book. It flowed really nicely. I really, really enjoyed it. So I was really excited for the second book, The Enchantress Returns, and was so freaking disappointed by it. It just turned out to be the same old plot line as the first book. The villains' names were practically the same, even. They were Evie and Esmia or something. Hello! It was so the first one was, you have to go around and make this quest and complete this quest of sort of a scavenger hunt type thing. And the second one was literally the same thing. So I'm like, why am I reading this? It's the same book, but with a different cover and a sort of new and updated villain or whatever. Come on, you don't write books like that. So I was really upset. But they left it on a cliffhanger, so what can you do? I gotta read it. Got to read it. So I'm really, really excited for this one, actually. Oh my gosh, what's this? Look at that. They've got a whole timeline. I'll show you guys this. It's super neat. I love when they have these sort of interactive maps and stuff like that of the world. That's a timeline. Interesting, right? I wonder if that's backwards for you guys. Anyway, that just shows sort of the history of the fairy tale world and where they now are implicated in, and it's really interesting. So you know what I think I'll do is I'll end the video there because I don't want to take up everybody's time, and I'll do a separate video on the diaries in uno momento. So that's all from me now, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!